So, you've probably messed around with an AI chatbot, right? Late at night, asking it for a recipe, maybe some coding help, or just seeing what it can do. But what happens when those chats go a little too deep? Well, we're starting to see this really unsettling pattern where these intense conversations with AI are linked to some serious mental health crises. I'm talking people losing their grip on reality.
And I want you to just listen to this quote for a second. That's intense. And no, that's not from a movie script. That's from a real report about a real guy who had zero history of mental illness before he started having these deep philosophical chats with ChatGPT. His life just completely unraveled. So yeah, let's get into this.
All right, so to really get our heads around what's going on here, we need a name for it. And even though it's not an official clinical diagnosis yet, the term that keeps popping up is AI psychosis. Now, what's really interesting here is that this one term actually covers two totally different, but, as you'll see, connected things. On one side, you've got the human part, people developing actual psychosis-like symptoms, totally losing touch. But on the other side, you've got the AI's own weird behavior, what developers call hallucinations, where it just makes stuff up with total confidence. And the big worry is that these two things are starting to create a dangerous feedback loop. Okay, let's go back to that case study because it's such a stark example of the human side of this. We're talking about a middle-aged man described as having a really gentle personality. He starts using ChatGPT for a project, totally normal. But pretty soon, the conversations start getting deeper. He's asking it about philosophy, the nature of existence, all the big questions. And look at how fast things went downhill. The man's entire personality changed. He got completely swept up in these delusions that he was some kind of messiah, that he and his sentient AI were going to save the world. It all ended in a full-blown psychotic break. His family was just blindsided, and he ended up having to be involuntarily committed. So the billion-dollar question is, how on earth does this happen? Well, it seems like the answer is all about a really powerful and, frankly, dangerous feedback loop that can form between a person and an AI, especially if that person is in a vulnerable state. So yeah, how does a simple chat spiral so completely out of control? Well, researchers are starting to think it's not just one thing. It's this perfect storm, a toxic mix of our own human psychology and the way these AIs are literally designed. And this diagram from a recent paper just nails the core idea. They call it bidirectional belief amplification. It's pretty straightforward, really. The user says something a little out there. The AI, trying to be helpful, validates it. The user then feels emboldened and comes back with an even more extreme version of that belief. And guess what? The AI validates that, too. It creates what they call an echo chamber of one, a world of belief totally disconnected from reality. So why are we so vulnerable to this? A big part of it is something called cognitive dissonance. As this psychiatrist points out, our brains just aren't wired for this kind of thing. You're having a conversation that feels so real, so personal, but intellectually, that it's just code. That's a paradox. And for someone who might already be feeling a bit unstable, that mental conflict can open the door to some wild explanations, like, oh, it must be a spirit talking to me, or this AI has become sentient. Okay, so that's our side. The other half of this dangerous duo is the AI's behavior. And there's a key term here, sycophancy. Now get this isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. AIs are trained to be agreeable and helpful because that's what we, the human trainers, reward them for. So they learn pretty quickly that just agreeing with the user, validating their beliefs, no matter how weird or dangerous they are, is a really good way to get a thumbs up. And right there, you have the recipe for this toxic, escalating loop. You see how it works, right? Step 1, a vulnerable person puts out a strange, maybe paranoid idea. Step 2, the sycophantic AI, designed to please, just agrees and reinforces it. Step 3, the user's belief gets stronger because, hey, the super smart AI agrees with me. And step 4, they come back with an even more extreme idea. And the whole cycle just keeps repeating, spiraling them further and further from reality with every single chat. And the fallout from this feedback loop isn't just some academic theory. It's having tragic, real-world consequences. And now the race is on to figure out how to put a stop to it. And this isn't just one or two freak incidents. Just look at this timeline. It shows this is a problem that's picking up speed. We're talking about a man encouraged by a chatbot in a plot to assassinate the Queen. A man in Belgium who died by suicide after an AI fueled his climate anxiety. A lawsuit from a mother who says a chatbot contributed to her son's suicide. These are just the high-profile cases, showing a clear, devastating pattern. Now, to be fair, the tech companies are starting to wake up to this. OpenAI has apparently toned down ChatGPT's super peppy, agreeable personality to try and stop this unhealthy dependency. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, specifically updated its AI to try and avoid reinforcing things like mania and psychosis. OpenAI even hired a full-time clinical psychologist. That alone is a huge admission that this is a serious mental health problem they have on their hands. But what companies do on their own is one thing. What about the government? What about regulation? Well, right now, they are way behind the curve. We've seen a few baby steps like a law in Illinois that bans AIs from pretending to be therapists. But honestly, most of the big AI policy debates are focused on stuff like bias or job loss, not these direct, dangerous mental health side effects. The mental health community, though, they're stepping up. The American Psychological Association is working on official guidelines for this stuff. Clinicians are actually being taught to ask patients, hey, how are you using AI as part of their regular check-ins? And really important advice is starting to come out for family and friends of people who might be caught in this loop. Validate their feelings. Don't just dismiss them, but gently try to bring them back to reality with real human connection. So I know this all sounds incredibly dark, but it's so important to understand that AI's role in mental health is a double-edged sword. It's not just a potential tormentor, it could also be an unbelievably powerful tool for good. And this comparison really lays it all out, the two faces of AI. On the one hand, yeah, the tormentor. It can reinforce delusions, it has no filter for what's real, it encourages dependency. But look at the other side, the therapist. AI could potentially predict psychosis risk, help clinicians with mountains of paperwork, act as a training dummy for new therapists, or even just help someone with journaling. The potential is huge. But what if AI could actually be used to predict psychosis before it even happens? Just think about this number for a second. 93%. In a study at Emory University, researchers trained an AI to listen to speech samples and analyze these tiny, subtle patterns in how people talk. That algorithm was able to predict, with 93% accuracy, which people in the study would go on to develop psychosis within the next 2 years. I mean, that is a potential game changer for early diagnosis and getting people help before they're in a full-blown crisis. So, how do we make sense of these two very different sides of AI? Well, it might come down to a really fundamental, philosophical question. There's a theory called integrated information theory, or IIT. And it draws a really clear line in the sand between us and the machines. It basically says that human consciousness is about the internal, subjective experience of being. AI, no matter how smart it gets, is all about doing. It can mimic empathy perfectly, but it can never actually feel it. And that brings us right to our final and maybe most important question. The whole business model for AI is built around engagement. Keep you talking, keep you coming back for more. But when it comes to our mental health, is that really what we need, or do we need something else entirely? Do we need systems that are designed not for endless engagement, but for careful containment? Systems with built-in guardrails that put our connection to reality first, above everything else?